Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Vengeance, watching the stars streak past through the main window. He had been patrolling these same space routes for 8 years now, and every day felt the same. Another call for help. Another fight to break up. Another mess to clean up. The ship's communication system beeped softly. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper turned from her station and looked at him with tired eyes. "Captain, we have another distress signal. This time it's from the cargo ship New York Express. They're under attack by Zephyrian raiders again." Jake sighed and rubbed his forehead. This was the 3rd attack this month. The Zephyrian Empire had been getting bolder lately, hitting human ships almost every week. Each time, the Earth Defense Fleet would respond, drive off the attackers, and file a report with the Galactic Council. Each time, nothing happened. "How far out are they?" Jake asked. 20 minutes at full speed, Harper replied. But sir, by the time we get there... I know, Jake cut her off. But we still have to try. The Vengeance jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing through space toward the distress signal. Jake had done this hundreds of times before. The routine was always the same. They would arrive to find the cargo ship damaged, maybe a few crew members hurt, and the raiders long gone. The pirates would disappear into Zephyrian space where the Earth fleet couldn't follow them without starting a war. 22 minutes later, they dropped out of light speed near the cargo ship. Jake's heart sank as he saw the damage. The New York Express was drifting in space, its engines dark, its hull torn open in several places. Small pieces of metal and cargo containers floated around the ship like a cloud of debris. "Any life signs?" Jake asked. Harper checked her sensors. "Yes, sir, but not many. Maybe 30 people still alive out of a crew of 80. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 50 good people were dead because some Zephyrian pirates wanted to steal cargo. And tomorrow, the Galactic Council would tell him that it was just a minor border incident. Why ain't that humans should try to understand the cultural differences of other species? "Send out rescue teams," he ordered. "Get everyone we can off that ship." Dr. Alex Chen was already suiting up in the medical bay when Jake called him. The doctor had been with the Vengeance for 3 years, and he had seen too many scenes like this. Every time they responded to an attack, he had to patch up the survivors and try to explain to their families why nothing would be done about it. The rescue took 4 hours. They pulled 31 survivors from the wreckage of the cargo ship. Most of them were badly hurt. 3 more died while Dr. Chen was trying to save them. By the end of it, only 28 people were left alive from a crew of 80. Jake sat in his ready room later that night, staring at the report he had to file. It was always the same report: ship attacked by Zephyrian raiders, crew killed or wounded. Pirates escaped into Zephyrian space. Request permission to pursue and arrest attackers. He knew what the answer would be. Same answer it always was. The next morning, the reply came from Earth Command. Request denied. Maintain peaceful relations with Zephyrian Empire. File diplomatic protests through proper channels. Jake threw the message pad across his room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Harper knocked on his door a few seconds later. "Come in," he called. Harper entered and saw the message pad on the floor. She didn't need to ask what the answer was. "Same as always?" she asked. "Same as always," Jake confirmed. "We're supposed to file a diplomatic protest and hope for the best." Harper sat down across from his desk. "Captain, I've been keeping track of the attacks over the past 2 years. Zephyrians have hit 47 human ships. They've killed over 800 people. And in all that time, not one of them has been arrested or punished." Jake looked at her. "What's your point, Lisa?" "My point is that they're not afraid of us anymore. They used to be careful, only hitting ships that were alone and couldn't fight back. Now they're attacking convoys, ships with armed escorts. They're getting bolder because they know we won't really fight back." Jake knew she was right. The Zephyrians weren't the only ones either. Crystalline Collective had stopped honoring their trade agreements with human merchants. They would take delivery of goods and then refuse to pay, claiming that the quality wasn't up to their standards. When human companies complained, the Galactic Council would set up mediation sessions that went on for years without reaching any decisions. The insectoid hive swarms were even worse. They had been slowly moving into space that had been settled by humans for decades. It would arrive at a human colony and declare that the planet was actually unclaimed territory, according to some ancient law that nobody had ever heard of before. The human colonists would be forced to abandon their homes and farms and move somewhere else. Every time humans complained to the Galactic Council, the answer was the same. We must respect the cultural differences of all species. Humans must learn to be more flexible and understanding. 3 weeks after the attack on the New York Express, Jake got the call he had been dreading. A human colony ship called the Hope of Tomorrow had been attacked while traveling to establish a new settlement on the Rim Worlds. The ship was carrying 50,000 people, mostly families looking for a new start on a frontier planet. The attack wasn't quick like the raids on cargo ships. According to the survivors, the Zephyrian fleet had surrounded the colony ship and demanded that everyone surrender. When the humans complied, the aliens had separated the men from the women and children. Then they had started killing people. For entertainment, Jake listened to the survivor reports with growing anger. The Zephyrians had broadcast the massacre live on their entertainment networks. Thousands of aliens had watched as human families were torn apart and murdered. Children had been forced to watch their parents die. Parents had been made to choose which of their children would live and which would die. Dr. Chen was waiting for him. When Jake finished reading the reports, the doctor's face was pale and his hands were shaking slightly. "I've treated the survivors," Chen said quietly. "Captain, what they did to those people, it wasn't war. It wasn't even piracy. It was torture. They did things to children that I can't even describe in my medical reports." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How many survivors?" 3,000, Chen replied, "out of 50,000. And most of them will never recover from what they saw." Jake immediately sent a message to Earth Command requesting permission to hunt down the Zephyrian fleet responsible for the massacre. He requested backup ships and authorization to pursue the aliens into their own territory if necessary. He wanted to bring the killers back to face justice for what they had done. The reply came back faster than usual. Request denied. The Galactic Council has ruled that the attack on the Hope of Tomorrow was a regrettable incident caused by miscommunication. All parties are urged to pursue peaceful resolution through diplomatic channels. Earth Defense Fleet vessels are ordered to avoid any actions that might escalate tensions. Jake read the message 3 times, each time feeling his anger grow stronger. 50,000 innocent people, including children, had been slaughtered for entertainment, and the Galactic Council was calling it a miscommunication. He called Harper to his ready room and showed her the message. She read it in silence, her face growing darker with each word. "They're not going to do anything," she said finally. Again, no, Jake agreed. "They're not." Harper looked up at him. "Captain, how much more of this do you think Earth will tolerate?" Jake thought about the 3,000 survivors currently recovering in the medical bay. He thought about the families destroyed, the children who would never see their parents again, the parents who had watched their children die for alien entertainment. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I think we're about to find out." 3 months passed after the massacre of the Hope of Tomorrow, and nothing had changed. The Galactic Council had formed a committee to study the incident. The committee met twice a week and discussed whether the attack was technically piracy or a territorial dispute. They had been discussing it for 12 weeks and still had not reached any conclusions. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian Empire was growing bolder. Their news broadcasts openly mocked humans as cowards who were too weak to defend themselves. Zephyrian children were taught songs about how easy it was to make humans run away. Some of their comedy shows featured actors dressed as humans crying and begging for mercy. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office at Earth Defense Fleet headquarters, reading the latest intelligence reports. The news was getting worse every day. Zephyrian ships were now attacking human vessels in broad daylight, in busy shipping lanes where other species could see what was happening. They wanted everyone to know that humans would not fight back. The Crystalline Collective had stopped even pretending to honor their contracts with human businesses. They would place large orders for goods, wait for delivery, and then simply refuse to pay. When human merchants tried to take them to court, Collective's lawyers would delay the cases for years using obscure legal procedures that nobody understood. The hive swarms had become even more aggressive. They were no longer content to take human colonies one at a time. Now they were moving in massive groups, taking entire star systems. They would arrive with millions of ships and simply declare that the space belonged to them according to ancient rites that predated human civilization. "Admiral," Sullivan's aide knocked on her door. "Ma'am, you have a priority message from Commander Danny Rodriguez." Rodriguez was in charge of rescue operations in the Outer Rim territories. If he was sending priority messages, it meant something bad had happened. "Put him through, Sullivan," ordered. Rodriguez's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked exhausted and angry. "Admiral, we have a situation. Zephyrians have launched coordinated attacks on 3 human colonies simultaneously. New Dallas, Port Hope, and Riverside are all under assault." Sullivan felt her blood go cold. "Coordinated attacks?" "Yes, ma'am."
This wasn't random raiding.
"They hit all 3 colonies at exactly the same time with overwhelming force. They're broadcasting the attacks live on their entertainment networks. It's being advertised as a special event called Human Hunting Season." Sullivan closed her eyes. She had known this day would come eventually. The Zephyrians had been testing human patients for years, and now they had decided to put on a show for the entire galaxy. "What's the status of the colonies?" she asked. Rodriguez consulted his data. "Pad. New Dallas has fallen completely. 15,000 colonists dead. Port Hope is holding out in bunkers, but they won't last long. Riverside evacuated most of their people, but the Zephyrians are hunting down the escape pods for sport." "For sport?" "Right. Yes. Ma'am, they're treating it like a game. They let some humans run, then chase them down and kill them slowly. The whole thing is being broadcast as entertainment. Alien children are watching human families get torn apart while eating snacks." Had served in the Earth's Defense Fleet for 30 years. She had seen combat, lost friends, and made hard decisions, but she had never felt the kind of cold fury that was spreading through her chest right now. "How long until our ships can reach them?" she asked. 6 hours for the nearest response team," Rodriguez replied. "But Admiral, by then it'll be over. The Zephyrians have sent enough ships to glass the planets if they want to." Sullivan cut the connection and immediately called an emergency meeting of the fleet command staff. Within an hour, every senior officer on Earth was sitting around the conference table in the secure briefing room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sullivan began, "the situation has changed. The Zephyrian Empire has just launched simultaneous attacks on 3 of our colonies. These are not raids or border incidents. This is systematic extermination being broadcast as entertainment." General Peter Hayes leaned forward. "How are the other species reacting?" "That's the worst part," Sullivan replied. "They're enjoying it. Our intelligence shows that viewing numbers for the broadcasts are breaking records across multiple alien civilizations. To them, this is just another reality show." Admiral William Grant slammed his fist on the table. For 50 years we've been the galaxy's police force. We've kept the peace, stopped wars, protected trade routes, and this is how they repay us?" "It gets worse," Sullivan continued. "Our deep space monitoring stations have picked up communications between several alien governments. The attacks on our colonies are part of a larger plan. Zephyrians, the Crystalline Collective, and at least 6 other species have formed a secret alliance. They're dividing human space among themselves." The room went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens weren't just raiding human ships anymore. They were planning to wipe out human civilization completely. "They think we're too weak to stop them," Hayes said quietly. "They've been watching us take their abuse for decades, and they think we'll just roll over and die." Sullivan nodded. "According to intercepted communications, they refer to humans as the servant species. They believe we exist to do their dirty work and then step aside when they want something we have." The meeting was interrupted by another priority message. Rodriguez appeared on the screen again, and this time he looked sick. "Admiral, I have updates from the colonies. New Dallas has been completely destroyed. They use some kind of weapon that turns people into glass statues before they die. Zephyrians are collecting the statues as trophies." Sullivan felt her hands clench into fists under the table. "What about the other colonies?" "Port Hope fell an hour ago. They broadcast the final moments live. The colonists tried to surrender, but the Zephyrians killed them anyway. Said surrendering humans were boring and they wanted to see how. Long people could run before they collapsed from exhaustion. In Riverside, Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. They're still hunting the escape pods. They've turned it into a contest to see which Zephyrian ship can kill the most humans in creative ways. They're giving out prizes. Admiral Grant stood up so fast his chair fell over. That's it. I don't care what the Galactic Council says. We need to sit down, Admiral, Sullivan ordered. We all feel the same way, but we can't act without authorization from Earth Command. 6 hours later, the attacks were over. 3 human colonies had been completely destroyed. 47,000 people were dead. Thousands of trophies and were already planning their next hunting expedition. The Earth Defense Fleet immediately requested permission to retaliate. Admiral Sullivan personally called the President of Earth and demanded authorization to hunt down every Zephyrian ship involved in the massacres. President Martha Wells convened an emergency session of the Global Security Council for 12 hours. The leaders of Earth debated what to do. Some wanted immediate military action. Others worried about starting a galactic war. While Earth's leaders debated, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The alien representatives were not discussing how to punish the Zephyrians for their crimes. Instead, they were debating whether humans had somehow provoked the attacks. The Crystalline Collective's representative argued that humans had been occupying valuable territory that other species needed more. The Hive Swarm's speaker claimed that humans were genetically aggressive and posed a threat to galactic peace. Even species that had supposedly been allied with humanity suggested that the attacks were understandable given human expansionist policies. After 6 hours of debate, the Galactic Council reached their decision. They issued a formal statement, condemning all acts of violence but specifically censured humanity for provocative settlement patterns and failure to respect the territorial needs of other species. The statement went on to say that if humans continued to occupy disputed territories and make aggressive demands for justice, Earth's membership in the Galactic Council would be revoked. When Admiral Sullivan read the Council's statement, she felt something break inside her chest. 47,000 innocent people had been slaughtered for entertainment, and the galaxy was blaming humanity for it. She immediately called President Wells. Madam President, Sullivan said, I've served this fleet for 30 years. I've kept the peace, protected alien civilians, and followed every order I've been given. But I will not stand by and watch our people be murdered while the galaxy cheers. President Wells was quiet for a long moment. What are you recommending, Admiral? I'm recommending that we stop being the galaxy's servants and start being what we've always had the potential to be, which is... Sullivan looked out her office window at the Earth Defense Fleet shipyards. Hundreds of ships sat in dock, their crews waiting for orders that would probably never come. Beyond them, she could see the construction yards where new vessels were being built for patrol and peacekeeping duties. The galaxy's masters, she said quietly. That night, President Wells called a closed session with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The meeting lasted until dawn. When it was over, a single order went out to every human military installation in the galaxy. Operation Homecoming, all human assets returned to Sol System immediately. No exceptio. The first sign that something had changed came when the cargo ship Blue Runner sent out a distress call near the Centauri trade routes. The ship was under attack by Crystalline Collective raiders, who were trying to steal a shipment of medical supplies bound for a refugee camp. The Blue Runner's captain expected the usual response. A human patrol ship would arrive within an hour, drive off the attackers, and escort the cargo ship to safety. It was a routine that had played out thousands of times over the past 50 years, but this time, no one came. The Blue Runner waited for 3 hours, sending increasingly desperate messages. Finally, they received a reply from the nearest Earth Defense Fleet station. The message was short and cold. All Earth Defense Fleet vessels have been recalled for reassignment, unable to provide assistance at this time. The Crystalline Raiders took everything valuable from the Blue Runner and left the crew floating in space in emergency pods. By the time a Zephyrian merchant ship found them 2 days later, half the crew was dead. Word of the incident spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. At first, most aliens assumed it was just a temporary situation. Maybe the humans were dealing with some kind of internal problem and would be back to their peacekeeping duties soon. But as the days passed, more distress calls went unanswered. Trade routes that had been protected by human patrols for generations suddenly became dangerous hunting grounds for pirates and raiders. Border disputes that had been kept quiet by human diplomats flared up into open warfare between alien species. Captain Jake Morrison received his recall orders while the Vengeance was investigating reports of hive swarm movements near the Outer Rim colonies. He read the message twice to make sure he understood it correctly. All Earth Defense Fleet vessels are ordered to return to Sol System immediately. Cease all patrol activities. Abandon all current missions. Return to home port for reassignment. Commander Lisa Harper looked over his shoulder at the message. Captain, what about the colonies out here? If we leave, the hive swarms will overrun them. Jake folded the message pad and put it in his pocket. That's not our problem anymore, Lisa. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Harper stared at him. Sir, are you saying we should just abandon these people? I'm saying we should follow our orders, Jake replied. For 50 years, we've protected ungrateful aliens who think we're too weak to matter. Now they're going to find out what the galaxy looks like without human protection. As the Vengeance jumped to light speed heading for Earth, Jake felt something he had not experienced in years. Relief. For the first time since he had joined the fleet, he was not rushing toward another crisis that he would have to solve with diplomacy and restraint. He was going home, all across the galaxy. The same scene was playing out. Human ships abandoned their patrol routes and headed for Earth. Trade stations that had been operated by human corporations shut down overnight. Diplomatic missions that had mediated disputes for decades packed up and left without explanation. The Zephyrian Empire was the first to celebrate what they saw as human surrender. Their news broadcasts featured victory parades and speeches about how they had finally broken the human spirit. Zephyrian military leaders made plans to claim all the territory that humans were abandoning. The Crystalline Collective was equally pleased. With human mediators gone, they could expand their mining operations into systems that had been protected by Earth treaties. Their corporate leaders estimated that they could increase their profits by 300% now that they did not have to deal with human regulations. The hive swarms began moving immediately. Massive fleets of insectoid ships poured out of their core systems and headed for former human colonies. They had been waiting for this opportunity for decades. But while the aliens celebrated, something else was happening in human space. Every ship, every station, every installation was being stripped of everything valuable and sent back to Earth. Industrial equipment, military hardware, scientific instruments, raw materials, everything was being loaded onto cargo ships and transported. To the Sol System, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the main operations center of Earth Command, watching the largest military mobilization in human history. Screens all around her showed the movement of ships, equipment, and personnel from across the galaxy. It was like watching an entire civilization pack up and move. Admiral, the last convoy from the Outer Rim territories has just jumped to light speed, reported Commander Danny Rodriguez. That's everything. Every human asset outside the Sol System is now on its way home. Sullivan nodded. How are the shipyards doing? Working around the clock, Rodriguez replied. We've got every construction facility in the system building new. Ships, the orbital factories are producing weapons and equipment faster than ever before. And ma'am, some of the designs coming out of the research labs are incredible. Sullivan smiled grimly. Good. We're going to need everything we can get. Human population had reacted to the recall order with surprising unity. When the government announced that Earth was withdrawing from galactic affairs, there had been no protests or complaints. Instead, millions of people had volunteered for military service. Factories had converted their production lines to military hardware without being asked. Scientists had offered to work on classified weapons projects. Dr. Alex Chen found himself transferred from the medical bay of the Vengeance to a secure research facility buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. The laboratory was filled with the brightest scientists from across human space, all working on projects that had been considered too dangerous to develop while Earth was part of the galactic community. Dr. Chen, said the project director, Dr. Sarah Martinez, we've been waiting for someone with your field experience. We need to understand how our new weapons will affect alien biology. Chen looked around the laboratory. The equipment was unlike anything he had ever seen. What exactly are you working on here? Martinez led him to a testing chamber, where a small device was mounted on a table. We call it a molecular disruptor. It can break down the chemical bonds in any organic material within a 50-meter radius. We need to know exactly what it will do to different alien species. Chen felt a chill run down his spine. This weapon could kill thousands of people at once. That's the idea, Martinez replied calmly. For 50 years, we've been fighting with one hand tied behind our backs because we didn't want to hurt anyone. Those days are over. Similar scenes were playing out in research facilities all over Earth. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets with a single shot were being tested and perfected. Defensive systems that could protect entire planets were being installed around human worlds. Communication jammers that could cut off faster than light messages across multiple star systems were being deployed. Meanwhile, the galaxy was slowly realizing that humans had been far more important than anyone had understood. Without human patrol ships, piracy increased by 400% in just 2 weeks. Trade routes that had been safe for generations became death traps for merchant vessels. The Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but they quickly discovered that they had no real authority without human enforcement. When they passed resolutions condemning piracy, the pirates ignored them. When they tried to mediate disputes between species, both sides walked out of the negotiations. The Zephyrian Empire's celebration ended abruptly. When 3 of their major trade convoys were destroyed by pirates in a single day, the Crystalline Collective's mining operations ground to a halt when their transport ships kept getting attacked. The hive swarms found that expanding into former human territory was much harder. When they had to fight off raiders and defend their supply lines, at the same time, 6 months after the human withdrawal began, the galaxy was in chaos. Wars that had been prevented by human diplomacy for decades erupted across multiple sectors. Economic systems that had relied on human protection collapsed. Crime rates soared as pirates and raiders realized that no one was coming to stop them. Galactic Council sent increasingly desperate messages to Earth, begging for human ships to return and restore order. Every message received the same automated reply: the Earth Defense Fleet is currently undergoing reorganization. We are unable to provide assistance at this time. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as it entered Earth orbit. For the first time in 8 years, the ship had been completely refitted with new weapons and defensive systems that he could barely understand. The crew had been retrained in combat tactics that would have been considered war crimes under the old galactic treaties. Captain, said Harper, who had been promoted to commander during the refit, incoming message from Fleet Command. Morrison activated the communication system. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the screen. Welcome home, Captain, she said. I hope you're ready to go back to work. Ready and willing, Admiral Morrison replied. What are our orders? Sullivan's smile was cold and dangerous. The Zephyrian Empire has decided to test our resolve. They've sent a raiding fleet to attack. One of our OU asterisk. The human colony of Haven's Rest had been established for over 30 years. It was a small farming world with about 12,000 people, mostly families who wanted a quiet life growing crops and raising children. The colonists had always felt safe because they knew the Earth's defense. The fleet would protect them from any threats. When the human fleet withdrew 6 months earlier, the colonists had been nervous but hopeful. Their planetary governor, Maria Santos, had assured everyone that the withdrawal was temporary, and that help would come if they needed it. The Zephyrian raiding fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning, while most of the colonists were working in their fields. 50 warships dropped out of light speed and surrounded the planet. The lead ship immediately broadcast a message to the surface. Humans of Haven's Rest, the Zephyrian commander announced, your species has proven itself too weak to defend what you claim to own. This world now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Governor Santos sent an emergency message to Earth requesting immediate assistance. The reply came back faster than she expected. Assistance is en route. Maintain defensive positions. The colonists were surprised by the quick response. During the old days, it would have taken the Earth Defense Fleet at least 6 hours to reach their world. They wondered how human ships could possibly arrive so quickly. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker had been waiting for this moment for 6 months. He commanded the newly formed Human Expeditionary Force, a special unit equipped with the most advanced weapons that Earth scientists could develop. His ships had been positioned in hidden bases throughout human space, waiting for aliens to make the mistake of attacking human civilians. Parker's task force consisted of only 12 ships, but each one was equipped with technology that would have seemed impossible just a year earlier. They had been watching the Zephyrian fleet since it left their home system 3 days ago. Colonel said his tactical officer, Captain Linda Davis, "The Zephyrians are moving into attack formation. They're preparing to bombardment the colony." Parker studied the tactical display. 50 Zephyrian ships against his 12. Under the old rules of engagement, this would have been considered hopeless odds, but the old rules no longer applied. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian commander," Parker ordered. The alien's face appeared on the communication screen. It was reptilian, with yellow eyes and a mouthful of sharp teeth. The creature looked amused when it saw Parker's small force. "Human," the Zephyrian said, "you are outnumbered 4 to 1. Surrender now, and we will give you a quick death." Parker smiled. "I have a counteroffer. Leave this system immediately, and we won't destroy your entire fleet." The Zephyrian commander laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "You humans never learn. You will enjoy adding your ships to our trophy collection." Parker cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "Target all enemy vessels. Begin the demonstration." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. The human ships moved with impossible speed, their new engines allowing them to appear and disappear faster than the Zephyrian sensors could track. The aliens found themselves trying to fight enemies that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The first Zephyrian ship died when a human weapons beam cut through its shields like they weren't even there. The beam sliced the alien warship in half, and both pieces exploded in brilliant bursts of light. The second ship lasted 3 seconds longer. Captain Davis watched the tactical display with professional interest. 17 minutes since engagement began. 49 enemy ships destroyed. 1 enemy ship remaining. Parker nodded. "Open a channel to the survivor." The last Zephyrian ship was trying to escape, its engine straining to reach light speed before the humans could catch it. The alien commander who appeared on screen was no longer laughing. His yellow eyes were wide with terror. "Please," the Zephyrian begged. "We surrender. We will leave and never return." "No," Parker said calmly. "You won't." The last Zephyrian ship died in a flash of light. The entire engagement had lasted exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds. Governor Santos watched from the planet's surface as the debris from 50 alien warships rained down through the atmosphere like falling stars. She had never seen anything like it. The Earth Defense Fleet had always been professional and capable, but this was something completely different. Parker's voice came through the communication system. "Governor Santos, this is Colonel Parker of the Human Expeditionary Force. The threat to your colony has been eliminated. Are your people safe?" "Yes," Colonel Santos replied, still staring at the light show in the sky. "Thank you." "How did you get here so fast?" "We've been watching and waiting," Parker said. "The galaxy wanted to see what humans could do when we stopped being nice. We're just getting started." News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than light speed. The complete destruction of 50 Zephyrian warships by only 12 human vessels was initially dismissed as impossible. Alien military experts claimed that the reports must be exaggerated or fabricated, but more reports kept coming in. Human ships were appearing throughout the galaxy, and they were nothing like the peaceful patrol vessels that aliens remembered. These new ships moved like ghosts and fought like demons. They would appear without warning, destroy everything in their path, and vanish before anyone could respond. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in her command center, watching the reports flow in from across human space. The Expeditionary Force units were performing even better than the simulations had predicted. In 3 weeks, they had destroyed over 200 alien ships without losing a single human vessel. Admiral reported Commander Rodriguez, "We've received a priority message from the Crystalline Collective, requesting an immediate ceasefire." Sullivan laughed.
Ceasefire.
"They started this war when they decided to steal our cargo and murder our people. Tell them that we'll consider their surrender when they've returned everything they stole and compensated the families of everyone they killed." "What if they refuse?" Rodriguez asked. Sullivan turned to look at a display showing the locations of human fleet groups throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked alien targets that were scheduled for elimination. There were thousands of them. "Then we keep teaching them why it was a mistake to make humanity angry," she said. The Crystalline Collective's home system had been the center of their civilization for over 1,000 years. Their crystal cities were considered among the most beautiful structures in the galaxy. They had never been attacked because everyone knew that the Collective's massive fleets would destroy any invader. Admiral William Grant led the attack personally. His battle group consisted of 30 human ships, each one equipped with weapons that could crack planets. The Collective had assembled over 300 ships to defend their home system. The battle lasted 47 minutes. The crystal cities were gone. The Collective's fleets were debris floating in space. Their government had ceased to exist. The few survivors spent their time trying to understand how their mighty civilization had been crushed so easily. Dr. Alex Chen watched the battle reports from his laboratory deep under the Rocky Mountains. The molecular disruptors he had helped develop were working perfectly. The new shield technologies were making human ships nearly invulnerable. The faster-than-light communication jammers were preventing alien fleets from coordinating their defenses. "Chen," said Dr. Martinez, "the President wants a report on the effectiveness of our new weapons." Chen looked at the numbers on his computer screen. In 6 weeks of fighting, human forces had destroyed over 1,500 alien ships and taken control of 47 star systems. Human casualties were so low that they could be counted on one hand. "Tell the President that our weapons are performing beyond all expectations," Chen said. "At this rate, we could conquer the entire galaxy within a year." Martinez nodded. "And should we?" Chen thought about the 3,000 survivors from the Hope of Tomorrow who were still recovering from their trauma. He thought about the 47,000 people who had died in the colony massacres. He thought about the 50 years of insults and abuse that humanity had endured while trying to keep the peace. "The galaxy wanted to see what happens when humans lose their patience," he said quietly. "I think they deserve to find out." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as it approached the Zephyrian Empire's capital system. Ship was now part of a massive human fleet that included over 200 vessels. Each ship was more advanced than anything the aliens had ever seen. "Captain," said Commander Harper, "we're receiving surrender offers from 12 different Zephyrian colonies. They're offering to pay tribute if we spare their worlds." Morrison thought about all the human cargo ships that had been destroyed by Zephyrian raiders. He thought about the colony ships that had been attacked for entertainment. He thought about the children who had been killed while alien audiences cheered. "Tell them that we're not interested in tribute," he said. "We're interested in justice." The Zephyrian homeworld had been the center of their empire for 500 years. It was heavily defended by orbital fortresses and protected by the largest fleet in their territory. The Zephyrian Emperor had boasted that his world was Enchi. 1 year after humanity finally lost their patience, Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Unity as it approached the ruins of what had once been the Galactic Council headquarters. The station that had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries was now a twisted wreck of metal floating in space, a monument to the consequences of underestimating human resolve. The war, if it could even be called that, had lasted only 8 months. The Zephyrian Empire had been the first to fall. Their entire civilization wiped out in a series of battles that had lasted less than 2 weeks.
Alvia.
The Crystalline Collective had surrendered after losing their home system, but their surrender had been rejected. They no longer existed as a species. The hive swarms had tried to negotiate after losing half their territory in a single month. But humanity was no longer interested in negotiations. The insectoid species had been pushed back to their original worlds and were now forbidden from leaving their home system. Any hive ship that tried to enter space controlled by humans was destroyed immediately. Morrison looked out at the debris, field that had once been the center of galactic government. He remembered all the times he had been forced to listen to alien representatives, lecture humans about patience and understanding while his people died. Those same aliens were either dead or begging for mercy now. "Admiral," said Commander Lisa Harper, who had been promoted to serve as his second-in-command on the Unity, "we're receiving reports from the reconstruction zones. The new colonial governors are requesting guidance on how to handle the remaining alien populations." Morrison activated the communication system. Admiral Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the screen. She was now the director of Galactic Reconstruction, the most powerful position in what remained of organized space. Admiral Sullivan, Morrison said, "What's the current status of the pacification efforts?" "Better than expected," Sullivan replied. "Most of the surviving alien species are cooperating with the new administration. They're providing labor for reconstruction projects and following human laws without resistance. The few groups that tried to organize rebellions were dealt with quickly." Morrison nodded. The rebellions had been pathetic affairs. Small groups of aliens trying to fight with outdated weapons against human forces that could destroy planets. The uprisings had been crushed so easily that most species stopped even thinking about resistance. "What about the Galactic Council's former territories?" Morrison asked. "We've divided them among reliable human administrators," Sullivan explained. "Governor Linda Davis is doing excellent work in the former Zephyrian sectors. Governor Steve Parker has the crystalline territories running more efficiently than they ever did under alien management. The trade routes are safer now than they've been in decades." It was true. Without alien pirates and raiders, galactic commerce had actually improved under human rule. Ships could travel anywhere without fear of attack. Contracts were honored, because human law enforcement made cheating impossible. The economy was more stable than it had been in centuries. Commander Rodriguez appeared on another communication channel. He was now in charge of what humans called the Integration Program, helping surviving alien species adapt to life under human authority. Admiral Morrison Rodriguez reported, "We've completed the cultural education programs in 47 systems. The results are remarkable. Alien children who are learning human history and values show much less aggressive behavior than their parents. Within a generation, we should have completely peaceful populations." Morrison was pleased to hear it. The integration program was one of humanity's most successful policies. Alien children were taught about the period when humans had been patient and forgiving, and about the terrible consequences that had followed when that patience was finally exhausted. Lessons were very effective. Dr. Alex Chen had been promoted to Director of Scientific Research, overseeing the development of new technologies that would maintain human dominance. His research teams had created medical treatments that could cure diseases that had plagued alien species for millennia. They had also developed weapons that could destroy entire star systems if any species ever became a threat again. "The molecular reconstruction technology is working perfectly," Chen reported from his new laboratory on Luna. "We can rebuild entire planets that were damaged during the war. The former crystalline worlds will be more beautiful than they ever were under alien control." Morrison smiled. Human terraforming technology could indeed work miracles. Worlds that had been strip-mined by alien corporations were being turned into garden paradises. Planets that had been polluted by careless alien industries were being cleaned and restored. Under human management, the galaxy was becoming a better place to live. The communication system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. President Martha Wells appeared on the screen looking pleased with the reports. She had been receiving. "Admiral Morrison," the president said, "I want to personally congratulate you and your crews on the outstanding job you've done. The galaxy is more peaceful and prosperous than it has been in living memory." "Thank you, Madam," President Morrison replied, "but the credit belongs to everyone who served. We all learned that sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is show people the consequences of their actions." The president nodded. "Speaking of consequences, we've received formal requests for alliance from over 200 minor species that weren't involved in the attacks on our colonies. They're offering to place themselves under human protection." Morrison was not surprised. Word had spread quickly about how humans treated species that cooperated with them. Alien worlds under human administration enjoyed better healthcare, safer transportation, cleaner environments, and more stable governments than they had ever experienced. Many species were actively requesting to become part of the human empire. Our response to the Alliance requests? Morrison asked. We're accepting them on a case-by-case basis, the president explained. Species that demonstrate genuine commitment to human values and laws will be welcomed. Those that still show signs of the aggressive behavior that caused this war will be given more time to prove themselves. It was a fair system. Humans had learned that not all alien species were inherently violent or dishonest. Some had simply been influenced by the aggressive cultures that had dominated the old Galactic Council. It's given proper guidance and education. Many aliens could become productive members of a human-led civilization. Commander Harper activated another communication channel. Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Memorial Commission. They're ready to dedicate the monument. Morrison checked his schedule. The memorial was being built on the site where the Hope of Tomorrow had been destroyed. It would honor the 50,000 people who had died in that massacre, along with all the other humans who had been killed during the years. When humanity had tried to keep the peace through patience and diplomacy, tell them we'll be there, Morrison said. The memorial service was attended by representatives from every human world and many alien species. The monument itself was a simple black wall with the names of everyone who had died during the period. That historians now called the Time of Patience. Above the names was a single inscription. They died because we were too kind. We will remember. Admiral Sullivan gave the dedication speech. She spoke about the importance of strength in maintaining peace and about the responsibility that came with power. She reminded everyone that humanity's greatest weapon was not their advanced technology or their military skill, but their capacity for justice. We did not seek to rule the galaxy, Sullivan said to the gathered crowd. We sought only to live in peace and to protect those who could not protect themselves. But when our patience was mistaken for weakness, when our mercy was seen as invitation for cruelty, we showed the galaxy what humans are truly capable of. She paused and looked out at the audience, which included both humans and aliens. Let this memorial serve as a reminder, she continued, that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy has always been our restraint. But let it also remind everyone that restraint has limits, and those limits should never be tested. After the ceremony, Morrison returned to the Unity and reviewed the latest reports from across human space. Crime rates were at historic lows. Economic productivity was higher than ever. Scientific research was advancing rapidly. Art and culture were flourishing on worlds that had been war zones. Just a year earlier, Commander Harper joined him in his ready room. Admiral, do you ever wonder what the galaxy would have been like if the aliens had just left us alone? Morrison thought about it for a moment. Probably a lot like it was before. Chaotic, violent, and unfair. Sometimes people need to be shown a better way of living, even if they don't want to learn. Harper nodded. Do you think we're being too harsh on the surviving alien populations? Morrison looked out his window at a convoy of ships carrying supplies. 2 refugee camps on former alien worlds. The ships were protected by human escorts, and the supplies were provided free of charge by human corporations. Lisa, he said quietly, we're giving them better lives than they ever had under T*.